Derek Calloway took out a $2 million life insurance policy on his younger brother without his knowledge. He forged the signature. He listed himself as the only beneficiary. Then he called Marcus every Sunday like nothing was wrong. There is a particular kind of grief that doesn't announce itself right away. It doesn't come when the doctors deliver the news, or when the funeral home calls. This is the detail that becomes impossible to move past once you know it. Because what it means is that by the time Derek sat across from his brother at that kitchen table in 2017, presenting a business opportunity with rehearsed warmth and a manila folder full of charts, he had already been planning something else entirely. The investment wasn't the scheme. The investment was the setup. Derek needed Marcus in financial distress. He needed him indebted, stretched, with a life insurance policy in place. And then he needed something to happen to Marcus. The LLC Derek created was real, but the land deal was not. The money Marcus borrowed against his rental property went into the LLC account, and within 3 months, was transferred out in increments across 4 shell accounts Derek had opened under different business names. By the time Marcus realized the investment had gone silent, no updates, no returns, no answers, the rental property was in foreclosure proceedings and Derek had stopped taking his calls. For a period of about 5 months in late 2017 and into 2018, Marcus did something a lot of people in his position do. He waited. He told himself there was an explanation. He left voicemails. He drove past Derek's house twice and found the lights on, the truck in the driveway, and no answer at the door. He convinced himself, for longer than he should have, that there was some version of this story where Derek wasn't the villain. Because the alternative, that his brother had stolen from him deliberately, was a story his mind kept refusing to finish. He lost the rental property in February of 2018. He took a second job to cover the gap. He didn't tell his mother what had happened because he knew it would break something in her that might not heal. And through all of it, Derek remained silent. Not unreachable. Not gone. Just silent. Which in its own way was the cruelest part. Because silence, when it comes from someone who knows exactly what they've done, is not absence. It's a choice. If you're watching this and you've been in a situation where someone you trusted chose silence over accountability, drop a comment below. This community has heard stories like yours and they matter. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe. We cover real stories like this one every week. The discovery came in April of 2019, and it came sideways the way most revelations do. Marcus had been dealing with a legal matter related to the foreclosure, and his attorney had subpoenaed financial records connected to the LLC. In the process of reviewing those records, a paralegal noticed an anomaly. A premium payment, recurring monthly, tied to a policy number that didn't match any account Marcus recognized. She flagged it. Marcus's attorney requested the full documentation. When the insurance policy arrived in the file, Marcus read it twice before the meaning of what he was looking at fully settled. His own name. His own date of birth. Derek's name as beneficiary. A policy opened 14 months before Derek had ever mentioned the investment. A forged signature on the application. $2 million waiting for Marcus Calloway to die. He sat in that attorney's office for a long time without speaking. Not because he didn't have words, but because the words that came to him first were not the kind you say in a law office. What he felt, by his own account later, was not rage. Not immediately. It was something colder and more disorienting. The sensation of watching the past 2 years rearrange itself around a fact he hadn't known was there. Every memory reformatted. Every Sunday phone call recontextualized. Every reassurance Derek had offered during the months of silence suddenly visible for what it was. A man keeping his scheme from unraveling before he was ready. Marcus's attorney contacted the Ohio Department of Insurance that same week. A formal fraud investigation was opened within 30 days. What investigators found, once they had full access to Derek's financial records, was a scheme that had been constructed with genuine patience. Derek had not acted impulsively. He had spent more than a year building the conditions for what he intended to do. The forged insurance application, the LLC, the shell accounts, the slow extraction of Marcus's money. Each piece had been assembled carefully, and each piece pointed in the same direction. The open question, the one investigators spent the most time on, was what Derek had intended to happen to Marcus after the financial scheme ran its course. A $2 million life insurance policy is not a contingency plan. It is a destination. Investigators found no direct evidence of a specific plan to harm Marcus, but the policy's existence, combined with the pattern of financial isolation Derek had engineered, painted a picture that was difficult to interpret charitably. A man doesn't insure his brother's life for $2 million and list himself as sole beneficiary because he is planning for his brother's future. Derek was arrested in August of 2019 at his home in Dayton. He was charged with insurance fraud, forgery, wire fraud, and felony theft. His attorney entered a not guilty plea. The case went to trial in the spring of 2021. Derek Calloway did not testify in his own defense. His attorney argued that the insurance policy had been taken out with Marcus's knowledge as part of a broader estate planning arrangement, and that the investment had failed not through fraud, but through genuine market conditions. The LLC paperwork, the defense claimed, supported Derek's version of events. What the defense could not explain, and what the prosecution returned to repeatedly, was the forged signature on the insurance application. Handwriting analysis confirmed it. A forensic document examiner testified that the signature on the policy application did not match any verified sample of Marcus Calloway's handwriting across 12 comparison documents. The jury deliberated for 3 days. On the fourth morning, they returned a verdict of guilty on all counts. Derek Calloway was sentenced to 11 years in the Ohio State Correctional System. He was also ordered to make full restitution to Marcus for the funds stolen through the LLC, a figure the court calculated at just over $140,000. The insurance policy was voided. Marcus was in the courtroom for the verdict. He did not celebrate. By several accounts from people who were there, he simply sat still for a moment after the foreman spoke, then nodded once the way a man does when something he has been bracing for finally arrives. There is a version of this story that ends with the word justice, and in legal terms that word applies. A crime was committed. It was investigated, prosecuted, and punished. The system in this instance worked. But anyone who has lived through a betrayal of this scale knows that the courtroom is only one part of the accounting. The other part happens quietly in the years after, when you are rebuilding the thing that was taken from you. Not just the money, not just the property, but the specific kind of trust that comes from believing someone is on your side. Marcus Calloway rebuilt. He returned to HVAC work. He eventually purchased another property, smaller than the first but his. His daughter Priya graduated high school in 2022. He still has dinner at his mother's house every other month, though Linda Calloway now sets one fewer place at the table, and nobody talks about the empty chair. What Marcus has said publicly in the one interview he gave after the trial is that the hardest part was not the money, not the legal fight, not even the years of confusion before he found the document. The hardest part, he said, was the moment in the attorney's office when he realized that Derek had always known, exactly what he was doing. That there had been no confusion on Derek's end, no weakness, no moment of regret that might have stopped it. Just a plan and a brother willing to carry it out. That is the part that doesn't resolve cleanly. That is the part that stays. Betrayal by a stranger is a wound. Betrayal by someone who shared your childhood, your dinner table, your mother's voice, that is something different. It rewrites history. It makes you question your own judgment in ways that take years to recover from. Marcus Calloway came out the other side of this story not because justice was inevitable, but because he kept asking questions when silence would have been easier. He found the document. He made the call. He sat through the trial. And when it was over, he went back to his life and built it again from the ground up. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment with your thoughts. This community is built on real conversations about real human experiences, and every response you leave helps this channel keep telling stories that matter. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're back next week with another story you won't forget.